Graffiti, street art, pop art, I don't really know where they start and end. I'm no expert. I used to really ridicule graffiti on subway walls and that kind of thing. I'm slowly coming to change my mind, having done a little bit of research and realizing the reason that people do it. So we're not getting into a political discussion. It seems from many hours of watching YouTube and reading different articles that graffiti is illegal, street art is legal.
Oh, that's strange.
Okay, so where does one start and one end?
So you mean street art like when they do chalk on the pavement?
No,
Where
it's
does it
all-
start and where does it end? That could be street art. So
Yeah, you know, if you see like on
Yeah.
Drawing on the pavement.
in
Well, I think
cities.
it's a shame because it's gone when it rains.
yeah.
That's the art of it.
So, like, a lot of graffiti, street art, has become really, what's the word, sought after,
Well, look at
expensive,
Banksy. Look at
Banksy.
If he puts one up, it's thousands.
If he does something on a house,
Yeah.
you can no longer sell the house.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
The council claims it. And you then have to insure your house because it's got a Banksy on it. So you might just be a lowly person living in a house on a street, and Banksy comes and he paints something on the side of your house, and all of a sudden you've got photographers, you've got
Yeah.
news press, you've got people from around the world coming to take photos of your house, and your privacy is being invaded. But nobody comes to you and says, well, hang on, I'll give you some money for that.
Well, it's a bit-
The reason they have, you don't write Esme on your painting is because the council might decide it's illegal and come and charge you to
Yeah.
get rid of it
Yeah.
and probably give you a fine. So they create a tag or name. So tag is their name, and it is an anonymous name. Generally, the tags mean something. However, the letters put together don't need to mean anything. Okay, so if you just had BYD, it doesn't actually have to read as a word.
No, right.
Okay, so in creating our tags, I'm going to give you a couple of hints and tips. We are going to create something that is interesting to us and means something to us and us alone. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm just going to show you the process. Now, there are some really, really scientific methods of doing this on the internet and in books where you measure your letters and you do this and you do that. We're not doing that. We're just having fun. We are going to create a tag in 2 hours. Graffiti artists take years. And because you create a tag today doesn't mean you can't change it. So it's not cast or set in stone unless your name's Banksy. So for homework, I asked everybody to just start writing the alphabet and numbers. Because the idea is, and I'm going to put some of these on here as well because you can see them better. I used a pencil. The idea is to use different pencils, different pens, and just get the feel of those pens and the pencils, get the feel of the letters. Now, interestingly, that was Rebecca's, and she's done it all in capitals. This is Castell's, and she's gone for lowercase. Now, why did Castell choose lowercase? Why did Rebecca choose uppercase? There's no right and no wrong, okay? When I did mine, I've tried to use both uppercase and lowercase. And the idea of doing this is that you will find if you do it often enough that one or two of those letters will flow from your hand more naturally. Okay? I've done more than this. I've just made these to show you. I found that the letters with tails were easier to draw. I liked the flow of the tails and the rounds, like the D's and the B's and the G for the G and that kind of thing. Whereas you might say, well, actually, I quite like doing the W's. Now, I don't like the W's and the N's and the M's, but it's a very personal thing. So the more times that you write the alphabet, you will be able to pick out the letters that you are happy writing. Because if you remember, when you do a graffiti art or a street art, generally you get about 10 minutes to do it, which is why they use stencils. Because you've got to do it at the dead of night when nobody can see you, or do it before somebody comes around the corner. So you haven't got a long time to write or sign your tag next to your art. So it's got to be done very quickly. And I'm going to read you a couple of quotes next week from Banksy about how he realized that he didn't have a long time to sign his name. But that'll be next week.
But he doesn't sign them, does he? He doesn't need to.
He does still sign some of them. He's got a tag, but Banksy isn't his real name. Banksy is his tag name.
Yeah.
So
His name's Alex somebody, isn't it?
But they do, you know when you see one.
It's not always him though. He's got his whole studio, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah,
people
but
doing it.
he's got
is-
lots of people
Yeah.
doing it now.
It's his
Yeah.
design.
Yeah, it's his designs, that's
Yeah.
right. But he doesn't do them necessarily.
No, it's he's got famous. He's a bit like Picasso and the
Yeah,
rest, where
yeah.
they didn't do the whole thing.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
From the
no,
start.
most artists have people.
So
They're posh.
lots and lots of times of doing the alphabet and numbers, because your tag can have letters and numbers. It can have spaces or exclamations or hyphens, anything like that. Once you have decided on your letters, like I said, right, remember I've already said I like the G's and the P's and the A's and the O's, and I started just writing random words down, okay? And then I started putting them together. How can I make them interesting? So I don't just want to write them as they are. So I started double lining them, okay, making them interesting. This is how I've done it. Then I thought, well, can I put two together so that they overlap? And then I went on to the Z's and the B's and the BG's and the GB's, and if you're dyslexic, the B's and the G's and the D's all roll into one. And at the end of the first session, I was stuck on gap. I thought, well, I can't use gap, because one of the things with tags is you need to try and not use something that somebody's used before. Now, we already know that there's a big Gap is a brand name. So I went for goal, and I started playing with that. And then I went to Jello, and then Jello, and then Jello, and I quite liked the tail of that G. So all the time I was playing, and this was done on my lap in front of the TV. Took me a couple hours, okay. And then gallop, dept, carrot. I came up with Zog, and I quite liked Zog. I'm looking for it to get it up here. Okay. I liked the Z and the G, and I played with the tails. Then I went to Zeb. What could I do with Zeb? And then I thought, well, star, because theoretically you could have a tag within an image as well. So you don't just have to have words. So I put a star around it. My very, very first tag was going to be splodge, but I didn't really like it, so that went out the window. Then this morning, I sat down. Now remember, I've had weeks to think about this. And although we've been doing clowns, it's been like, mulling and mulling. And I just sat down here because really I still hadn't decided on a tag. Wasn't happy with any of these. And I thought, right, BHY. Number 1. So I put them together. And I played with them. So I made the stick of the B longer. I've put the H and the O together and rubbed out the middle. Put the H and the Y together and rubbed out the middle. Oh, I can rub out that middle. I'm looking at negative shapes. And I quite like the way that looks as a shape. The whole thing I like about it, okay? And then I put a B on top of the B. Okay. So for the purposes of this project, that is going to be my tag. And it stands for Be Happy One.
What is that once? Or
Well, the
happy
one
person?
means that I haven't had any help creating my tag. I work on my own. I don't work in a syndicate like Banksy. So I can put a 1 within my tag. So if you ever see a tag that's got a 1 with it, you know that that person works on his own.
Right. We're learning something.
Yeah.
I shall look at them differently now.
You will. They're all the way around Stafford. They're there. The same ones pop up. They're sometimes at the top of buildings, and you think, well, how
they
get
did
there?
they get up there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So have you Googled that to see if anybody else has
oh
got
no,
it?
I haven't. I haven't. They could. You can Google it for me now. So that's going to be mine. Yeah. They're going to have the bee on the top as well, of course. You know, the buzzing bee.
Yeah.
Would
So-
that fulfil the criteria that you've got to do a query? Or would you have a stencil from
If I was going to go and do it on a wall, I'd have to make myself a stencil.
Yeah.
So,
You can't have it too complicated. I
no.
suppose,
You want to keep it as simple as possible. Because once you have created a tag, there's a second part to it, and it's all about the colours that you use to paint your tag. And of course, that's going to be our project for today, creating the tag and painting it. So let's just have a play, see if we can come up with a tag, and then we'll do the second part.
Right.
Okay, so we've all designed a tag. They're all different, and we need to allocate some colour to our tags. So I'm going to just run through a couple of photos that I've printed off just to give you some ideas. Is this street art or is it not?
I'd say it's just a decor on a plan.
Depends
It's hand
where
painted.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, there's the paint, look.
Depends where
I'd say
it's
it's
parked.
movable, so maybe not.
If it was a florist company, I'm quoting advert.
It's not a florist company. It's
Do you know what I
somebody's,
mean? If it-
yeah, it's somebody's personal van, and they live on a canal boat,
Flourish fund.
and they decided to paint on it.
Very well done on a funny shaped vehicle.
Yeah, okay, so I thought, well, I'll just add that to it. It's work in progress, as you can see by the paint pots. Okay, so what are we going to do? You know, I mentioned about having the number 1. So this tag is hacker. So in the A, he's put a face. The letters are different sizes. He's got faces on the edges. He's got the 1, so he's working on his own. There's a crown. I'm not quite sure what that is. Got a Hoflich and Unberut. It's obviously German or something. I reckon that would take quite a long time to do. So
God, yeah.
it's not a
And
stencil.
the size of it.
Yeah,
It's on
and
a
it's
wall,
quite
isn't
big.
it?
It's on a wall.
If it's in Berlin or Germany, graffiti of any kind is legal in Germany and it can take as long as they like.
Oh, okay. Well, graffiti is legal in Shrewsbury because the council, you know, the little road bollards, the black road bollards that they put up and down to stop traffic going through. Well, the council put out a thing to artists, and you could apply for a bollard. And you then were allocated a bollard that you could go and paint. Stafford could take a hint.
It's too adventurous.
Okay, so yeah, black and white. Black and white is the age old. The very, very first tagging street art was all black and white. Anybody know why?
Probably because they couldn't afford coloured paint.
They didn't get coloured paint. Okay, because in the old day, well, still, graffiti and street art is largely done with spray paint, and you couldn't get coloured paint. So it was black and white. If you look, it's also common to paint over somebody else's painting, which is where you get all this mishmash and untidiness that comes of graffiti. So if you decide that your name is going to be Petto, and Rebecca has the same name, Petto, but she's had it for 10 years, she could come and scribble hers. It might be in a different style, all the way over yours. So it becomes like a graffiti wall. So black and white, very in your face, quite simple. Another very popular choice is chrome black and white. Chrome being the colour of the metal corrugated iron buildings. Okay, so that hasn't actually been painted. The chrome hasn't been painted. Just the tag is on top of the colour of the wall.
Is there somebody else going on top?
Yeah, somebody else going on top. They've obviously made a mistake there because they put something over it. Okay. Red and white. Very popular. So after black and white, red and white, the red spray paint became very accessible.
Probably because it was a rust-proof one.
Probably. Who knows? Yellow and white. Anything, purple and white, anything in white stands out, the white being. Now, if we were going to use white, because we are doing it in watercolour, we would have to do something within the white. So this particular one shows up the corrugated or whatever that wall is. It might be wood, but it shows the texture through it. So we could do that as well, showing the texture through it. A lot of the spray paints have different coverage, much the same as our paint, watercolour. Yellow has a much weaker coverage than, for instance, yellow ochre. So lemon yellow is not as thick or doesn't have as good coverage as yellow ochre, because the yellow ochre is opaque. The same as yellow and purple. Purple is a much stronger colour. It's got better coverage. We don't really have to worry about that too much because we are doing our street art on paper. I did think of bringing in a whole lot of cardboard and lining the walls with cardboard. Might be quite a nice idea for an exhibition one day. And then as we got fluorescent paint, fluorescent colours became quite popular. We do get these days quite easily the gold and metallics watercolour paint. So if you wanted to put gold and metallic and that kind of thing in, you could, and make it zingy. There's a lot of lights and darks in there, so there's no reason that you couldn't use salt or pure water into thicker washes. Graded washes. So where something goes from light to dark in one colour, or from purple to yellow, and then you've got to think about your background. So in other words, if you had done something like this on a blue background, it's not really going to stand out. So they've got a black line all the way around, but in order to make it stand out on the dark brown wall, because obviously they haven't painted the wall, they've given it a light thing. They've also got a 15 in there. So instead of having 15 in big numbers, they've just got it in little numbers, a bit like what you've done with your 08. Okay, so then where are we going for next week? Okay, because it's no good just creating a tag. We need to do something with it. So it's entirely up to you what you do with your tag. We are going to create our tag. We're going to color it in today so we know what it is. And then whether we use it as part of a greater background or something smaller, we are going to pretend that we have a wall in front of us and paint our tag on the wall. You could just decide that you've got a brick wall and paint the bricks on your piece of watercolor paper and your tag over the top. Okay. I've got another example which I rather liked. I liked that because I thought it opened it up to all sorts of things. It's obviously, they've got newsprint on the wall, the Campbell's tomato sauce, a tomato soup can, which one of Banksy he put, I think it was one of the American galleries, he did a tomato soup, or I don't know if it was tomato, but it was a tin can, and he went and he just put it in the gallery and stood back and waited to see how long before.
It had Heinz on it as well.
Yes, it did. It had Heinz or
was
something on it.
That's the
Yeah.
lovely shape that Heinz
Yeah,
had got.
waiting to see how long it was going to be there, and I think it lasted 5 minutes or something. Anyway, so if I was going to do something like that,
So what's the tag on that?
well, I'm just looking. The dream, big dreams. I don't know. Can't say. But I quite liked it. Whether that's his tag, I don't know. I mean, I've just taken the image. Like I could think, you know, what's mine, BHY. I could do something like that, and instead of having BHY, I could write be happy and a B. It would still fit moving on. And I could then get some newsprint or some magazine and I could stick it onto my watercolor paper and paint over it. So I could create a wall before I painted on it. I could do him on a separate piece of paper, cut him out and stick him on. But so it's becoming more of a collage. Can you see where we're going?
Yeah.
So I'm just giving you ideas. I've sort of got an idea of what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to tell you because it's going to be a surprise. Because if I tell you, you'll all copy me, or maybe you won't. Maybe I'll be copying you, so who knows? But that's where we're going to. Once we have designed our tag, and I'll show you where I'm going with mine, for next week, we need to think of a wall picture, and there's lots on Pinterest and on the internet as starts. Don't copy something exactly, but it's a good start. It's a good place to start. I mean, I would never have the patience to go and do all that, but it's a good place to start. So just to show you my tag, okay, I have decided to do my contrasting one where I've got yellow, orange going into the cad red. Okay, so it's, I am going to have my B, and I'm going to put a purple outline. Now, yes, I could go and get a pen and do it in pen. However, we're going to try and stay away from pen and do it in watercolor, which is why I said make sure that it's big enough. This is our design, okay? This is our design for next week. So I'm designing it. I might decide once I've done it that I really don't like it. I'm holding my breath, so that's why I'm not talking. Now, I could also feed my paint into my ruling pen if I wanted to. As long as your paint is runny enough and you can pick enough up on your brush, it should be okay. The reason I've gone for purple is because it's opposite my yellow on the colour wheel. So I've mixed purple and ultramarine blue. So that is going to be the start of my tag. Look at the difference it makes when I haven't got the red next to it. Okay, so I haven't finished painting that, but I will do so. So that's my tag. That's your homework for next week. We've still got time today to create the tag. Yeah, see what comes up.
That's